the King Street Cinema Podcast, Episode 1, First Blood, with special guests, the Pookajee Players.
John Rambo was just passing through town, but they had nothing better to do.
You're looking for trouble. You came to the right place, buddy.
They didn't know how far he would go. They knew he was innocent.
It's another drifter that broke the law. Vagrancy, wasn't it?
They didn't know he had been trained for survival.
Right on top of him. Keep moving. There's no way out of here except through us.
They didn't know he could stalk a soldier by his heartbeat.
You don't seem to want to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare.
They didn't know they had started a war that they could never win. Sylvester Stallone in First Blood, from the best-selling novel.
Welcome to the first episode of the King Street Cinema Podcast, the podcast that talks everything King Street Cinema, Ipswich's only independent cinema. We'll focus mainly each episode on some of the retro films that will be shown at the cinema. This week we'll be reviewing Rambo, which will be shown on July the 29th, and sort of previewing the 80s classic Tron, which is shown early August. It's a D.I.Y. podcast which I record sort of roughly out and about at the cinema. Most of it's recorded, mostly used just a dictaphone, a bit rough around the edges, but we want to get out there and chat to the people who use the cinema as well as the people who work there. And I'll be chatting to Dan and James, who work there for parts of this podcast, and Adam Whybray, who uses the cinema, and the Pookajee Players, local musicians who are film fans, one of which uses cinema quite a bit, and the other guy's well into film, and I think we've talked him into coming to watch more films at King Street. I'm Andy. I also do a podcast called ACM's Vault of Cult, where I focus on old movies. This podcast, as I say, will be talking about lots of things, all related to King Street Cinema. It's recently been rebranded. It was called the Ipswich Film Theatre for many years, and I spoke to Dan from the cinema about why they decided to rebrand it. Okay, I'm here with Dan. How you doing?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Just going to have a quick chat about the rebranding of the cinema. It's been about a year now, yeah?
It's a year. It's coming up to a year, yeah.
So it's gone from the Ipswich Film Theatre to King Street.
Yeah, we reopened as Ipswich Film Theatre, and then we within about 4 months, I think we had rebranded to King Street Cinema.
Yeah, can you explain why the rebranding?
I mean, there were multiple reasons. One of the reasons was that the name film theatre kind of lends a little confusion of sorts to especially to an audience, a new audience that we're attracting. Is it film? Is it theatre? And we felt that we really wanted the word cinema in the name. And you know, we're on King Street, and we thought that represented a good name for, you know, where we wanted the business to go, essentially, and how we wanted it to form an important part of this kind of this area of the town centre: King Street, Queen Street, Princess Street, and some of the independent businesses that are in the same area as well, and how we could work to kind of combine those streets into a sort of indie business quarter of the town. So yeah, excellent.
How are things going since the rebranding?
They're going well. I mean, we're seeing growth every month, so sustained growth, which is really good. It's small, but you know, it's growth nonetheless. And without fail, every audience member who I see leaving on a nightly basis is leaving happy, and that's a thrill to see that.
Excellent. The bulk of this podcast will be talking about the VHS Fridays first film, First Blood. You'll be along for that night, will you? Be watching the film with us?
Yeah, I will be in there.
Excellent. And you'll be of about the age where you grew up with VHS, yeah. Can you think of a film that you watched a lot on VHS, either rented or bought as a kid, that you'd like to maybe show in this season?
I think Yes, there's one in particular. I mean, there are a whole bunch, but there's one in particular, and it's maybe it's too much of an obvious choice, but that's Explorers, Joe Dante's Explorers.
Oh yeah.
Which I loved as a kid, but every time I watched it was instantly disappointed. By the time you get to the third act, I felt let down, just completely let down. But there was something so addictive about it.
Yeah.
Like I then wanted to go back and watch it, back from the beginning again, even though I knew that there was disappointment coming.
Yeah.
It was very, very. Yeah, maybe I'm some kind of masochist. I don't know. But yeah. So that one in particular. And probably Gremlins as well.
Yeah.
Another Joe Dante.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. I think Gremlins 2 might have been one of the first films I saw in the cinema. But it's the first one that I love, to be honest. The second one's fun.
Yeah.
But you showed that at Christmas, didn't you?
We showed Gremlins at Christmas, yeah. That was our that and The Shop Around the Corner. They were our two best films at Christmas.
Excellent.
Did very well. So yeah, bringing it back is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And bringing it back as a VHS Fridays is going to be great.
Yeah. Just mentioning Joe Dante there. When you think of the films he had in that era, there's so many that I rented as a kid, and even sort of the later ones like Matinee, if you've ever seen that, which is about a cinema, which is a film I imagine you could sort of relate to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. And also, I just want to think about it with the rebranding. It's helped us out because the Ipswich Film Theatre podcast hasn't got the same ring to it as the King Street Cinema podcast.
That is very true. It rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for chatting about that. Now we're going to go over to me again with the Pookajee Players discussing First Blood, or Rambo, as it's sort of become known over the years. I'm here with the Pookajee Players, Andrew and Owen. This is not the first time you spoke about films with me. We've mentioned it on ACM's Vault of Cult. You've done a few films with me. But we're going to be talking about First Blood in a minute. But for anyone who don't know you guys, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what you do?
Loosely music. Pop hits, 1920s, 1970s. Through the filter of something a bit silly at times, but
with comedy in inverted commas and music in inverted commas.
It seems to have a small devoted following, and hence why we're still able to keep doing it.
And you're based in Ipswich?
That's correct, yes.
Gig quite a bit, yeah?
Oh, when we can,
yeah.
Yeah, and you can be found on the social media, yeah?
It has been known. Certainly Facebook. We have sort of dabbled slightly elsewhere. Watch this space.
Yeah. How long have you been doing it for now?
Too long.
I think it's 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years. And we're getting quite close to 300 likes on Facebook.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all. But yeah, so that's why I know you from gigging around. And being from Ipswich, do you use the King Street Cinema?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the last film you saw?
I watched Olga, the one about the Ukrainian gymnast in exile.
Excellent. So we'll be talking about... Owen, have you been to the cinema? Sorry?
I've not been since the rebranding, I must admit. I'm a bit of a film theatre man. Well, not that often, but back when I was a wee lad, and that they used to be cheaper than the other cinemas.
Yeah, so
you didn't have to walk as far either. When you had little legs, that was a prime consideration.
Can you remember any of the films you saw?
I definitely saw the Simpsons movie there, in the little screen. It was just me and my mate on our own.
Oh, cool.
And I think I saw National Treasure 2 as well.
Nicholas
Cage.
National
The big
Treasure
screen.
2?
You've not seen that?
No.
Oh, there you go.
That's a segue.
Recommendation for King Street there.
Yeah, excellent. So they're going to be showing First Blood at the end of July.
Yes.
I think the Friday the 29th is the first part of the VHS Fridays season. I'll just quickly talk about VHS with you. Did you rent or buy many when you were younger? How old are you? Sort of mid-20s, aren't you?
Yeah,
So,
26.
Yeah.
so you must have been quite young when it was a thing.
Yeah.
Well, VHS was the real deal. That was the thing. Like, I can remember when we got our first DVD player, and that was like weird moment. Like, you can watch films on discs now, but we didn't really rent, but we had lots of VHS in the house on that. Odd potted collections of films my mum remembered seeing in the 80s, and Disney films primarily.
Okay, do you remember any of the 80s films?
I think she had Big,
Classic.
Otter and a Gentleman.
Otter and a Gentleman.
I would watch that.
Officer and a Gentleman.
Yeah,
yeah.
and
What, Gerbil and Gentleman?
I know some other odd stuff which I think she picked up. I can't quite remember what it was. I didn't really know what it was, but like, actually, no, what was it? Grafters, season 1 or 2, which is some drama, I think, with Stephen Tompkinson and Robson Green in, I think.
Blimey,
That's one for you IMDb searchers.
Yeah, never even heard of that. And Andrew, yourself?
Yeah, I remember Brassed Off,
Oh yeah,
Rob Roy,
We might have had brass stuff, actually.
Shaft,
the original.
A Bug's Life. Remember got that the day it came out from Blockbuster. Yeah, there was quite a lot of VHSs, I guess.
Yeah, you mentioned before we started recording about the joys of buying X rentals.
Yeah, I got Spaceballs and Looney Tunes back in action as X rentals, so they were a bit cheaper. That was good.
That's one thing people might not remember with, especially the smaller rental places, like a corner shop in the town I'm from used to rent films out, and once they got old and no one rented them anymore, you could pick them up for probably about the same price as actually renting them. And I picked up some absolute classics like Opportunity Knocks, starring Dana Carvey, and Return of Swamp Thing, which was a classic.
You hit the jackpot there.
I
boy.
did. I bought loads, and they were in slightly bigger cases because they were display cases.
Yeah,
Not for resale.
that's the little kind of clip bits inside to stop the video rattling round.
Yeah, so those
Desperately interesting.
were the days. And a film I had it bought on video. I remember buying it from it was from Buy-Right, which is no longer there in Hadley. Or is it? No, it's not. It's not the only one that's changed name. And I bought a copy of First Blood. I was probably too young. I think my parents might have got it for me. Don't arrest them. They're in the 70s now. And I had the first one, and my next door neighbour had part 2 and 3. This is well
Second
before
Blood. Yeah.
well before the 4th one was made. And growing up, I always preferred part 2 and 3 simply because I didn't have them, so I didn't watch them as much. But I'll talk about the film. We'll talk about the film soon. But looking back, I think I was very wrong. And for First Blood, I think is by far the best one. Let's talk about that film now, shall we?
Yeah.
John Rambo was innocent.
I'm warning you, boy, don't make a move. I'll blow your head off. I didn't do anything.
They pushed him too far.
Starting to dislike you.
A lot. One man who'll never give up. I didn't come here to rescue Rambo from you. I came here to rescue you from him.
Are you telling me that 200 men against your boy is a no-win situation for us?
You said that, Manny. Don't forget one thing.
What?
A good supply of body bags. Sylvester Stallone. You have never seen him like this before. First Blood, from the best-selling novel.
First Blood was released in 1982 at cinemas and wasn't long after that till it was on VHS, I'm guessing, before my time. I was 1 year old when this was released, and you guys would have not been...
14.
Minus 14. Both of you were minus 14.
Yeah.
In that ballpark.
Yeah.
But being of a younger age is a film you're very aware of, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's one of those things I think you're aware of, even if you don't really know why.
yeah.
He's-
To see an image of...
Yeah, it's sort of because of that figure, isn't it? The drifter, the big old gun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so in the original, we'll just quickly talk about how it starts and the premise. Really, he's a drifter, comes into the fictional American town of Hope, probably called that for a reason, and he's basically driven out by the sheriff, or tried to be driven out. He gets arrested for being a drifter. And not the band Drifters, for being a drifter. And
that'd be a very different film, but I would definitely watch it.
And then basically escapes jail and goes on the rampage, doesn't he?
Yeah, starts a big old manhunt.
Yeah, and they all go gunning for him. We don't want to give away too many spoilers because, of course, you can see this. It'll be the 40th anniversary showing at King Street on July the 29th, which will be the first of their VHS Fridays, which should be once a month, the last Friday of every month. Hoping to go along to that. Even though we've all seen it, I'm sure you guys are up.
Yeah, that'll be
it's
good one to watch.
Over and over,
Yeah, but this is one of those things. I mean, so many fans of this film haven't seen it on the big screen because of it came out the VHS days, and I'm guessing you would have first seen it probably on DVD then.
Sort of BBC 4, not BBC 4,
Oh,
ITV4.
That's how I watched it.
Very
It
different.
was, I'd have probably been 17 or 18, and it was on mute in a Weatherspoons.
Really?
So I saw it on quite a big screen because it's the one they normally have the football on. But yeah,
Okay.
Wow, that's unusual.
yeah. So you got the gist of the plot mostly.
Yeah.
I used to watch these sort of things really late at night when I was about 12. So
Yeah.
maybe the man I am today.
Oh dear. So Stallone's actual first hit without the word Rocky in the title. He's not had a hit film apart from the Rocky one. He was in Death Race 2000, a film called Nighthawks, Skate to Victory, all flops. Until this came along, which was massive. It made 125 million on a 15 million budget.
God.
Which is pretty cool. Based on a novel, and you even knew who wrote the novel.
Yeah, I've done my research. Some bloke called David Morrell.
Yeah. In 1972 that came out, and he wasn't overly impressed with the movie. In the book, Rambo, it's John Rambo in the film. He just called Rambo in the book. Wasn't such a likeable chap. He was just a bit insane, and he dislikes the sequels even more, from what I'm told, and which do get a bit silly. We'll mention that in a bit. But we'll talk about the cast. I mean, Stallone. It's difficult, I'd say, to think of anybody else in this role.
I suppose it's that Stallone problem. We're so used to just saying Stallone's in it, and just he's become that kind of bigger than film, I guess, icon, hasn't he? That he is more than the character, but.
Yeah.
But within that, there's the sort of the cliche caricature of him not being very good.
Yeah.
Which you couldn't say about him in this film. He's
really
good in it.
Yeah. It's a film originally he wasn't very happy with. It was a 3.5 hour cut originally, and he disliked it so much he tried to buy it up so it wouldn't be released. Oh. And it was edited down. I know he was involved. I don't know if he wrote all the script, but he was definitely involved.
Definitely has his hand in it, didn't he?
Yeah. He toned down some of the excesses, didn't he? To make the character more sympathetic, I think.
Yeah. I don't think it's really spoiled to mention the first time you see John Rambo, when he goes to visit one of the people he was at war with, one of his team, the only other surviving member apart from him, finds out that he's died. He has a little conversation with someone who knows him. I'm not too sure who it is.
It's either his man's other half, wife, partner, or just a friend. We're not
friend.
really sure, but
but he's very sort of quiet and well spoken, and
he comes across awkward. I felt,
awkward, but nice.
It's not something you're really expecting of
affable.
Stallone.
Yeah, and then it's like he's driven to be angrier throughout the film, and it's kind of strange because in this movie it's him with the dressed like a drifter, clearly a veteran as well by his dress. It's not the iconic Rambo with the red headband on,
the war stripes.
He gets is it a machete, the knife he has? He does get that in this, the famous.
It's just a big old combat knife thing.
Bowie knife, something like that.
But it's one of these iconic movies, but I think it reminds me in many ways of, how the first Friday the 13th movie is so different to what it became.
Yes.
I think this is the only other example I can think of where the sequels have gone really ridiculous. And
maybe Rocky,
Dirty Harry as well. I remember, because there's a lot of quotes in that, like people think of Dirty Harry saying, was it like make my day, I think. But he doesn't say that until like the fourth film.
Does he not say at the end of the first one?
No.
Okay.
It's like one of those things like that. So I think like what the character becomes and the tropes and that you associate with them,
Yeah.
they're not always there at the start.
Yeah.
And I think Rambo's definitely like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going back to Rocky, everyone seems to think Eye of the Tiger's in Rocky, and it comes in part
Rocky
3,
yeah.
which was the last Rocky film made before this one. And I think this kind of saved Stallone's career for a while, because he was in those flops, like we say, and then it might have been that he'd have just gone on. I mean, they'd done enough.
Might have just been a
Rocky.
one-trick pony. Though.
Yeah, and this is the two iconic characters of him. Are definitely these two.
Yeah.
Personally, I prefer the Rambo. For me, is my favourite Stallone film, or First Blood. Sorry, it's got to stop calling it Rambo, because part 4 is just called Rambo. And
to keep us all on our toes.
yeah, but Rocky's great, but I think they really overdone it with the sequels. They're hit and miss, but I think there's too many.
It might just be
more hits than miss, I must admit.
It might just be you've got to buy into it, but I think it does keep delivering. Maybe it delivers different things over time, and what it delivers is of a different quality or meaning. But
the main one for me, what was a letdown, was part 5.
I think
that's fair, isn't it?
I think Stallone want to make it. To be fair to him,
Yeah.
but
Well, that's good, because this sort of enabled him to do other stuff again. You know, he had that big hit, and it was 3 years until the sequel. Then they done part 3 in '88, which was a canon film. And I'll just quickly, I mean, going by IMDb and stuff, this one has 7.7 out of 10, obviously. Part 2, 6.5. Part 3, 5.8.
bit harsh.
And part 4's got a 7.
That's
But I think
interesting.
Because that was in the 2000s. I think people have waited a long time for it. And it's really violent, that one.
It's a competent film.
It's
I
sort
don't
of
like
not
it
that
very
violent
much.
though. There's at least like an hour and a half where it's just a man on a boat, but not in like a Wind in the Willows way.
Then it goes mad. And then there's Last Blood, what came out, was it 2 years ago? And that's
It's,
6.1, which I think is really high for that.
It's one,
it's quite
one of the
generous.
most interesting comedies I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's
Like it's worth it for the final punchline, but it's a long watch.
it's a long, and it's only about 90 minutes.
and it's
And
quite far removed from the source material.
yeah,
And doesn't really get Rambo right. Funny
Yeah.
enough.
and one thing that's kind of forgotten, in 1986, so just after the second film came out, there's an animated TV series for kids called Rambo: The Force of Freedom, which ran. Looking it up, it says it was 2 seasons on one source and another season, just 1 season on another source. But there were 65 episodes of that made, and there was all the action figures, and it was just a big thing. That I think they sort of try to forget that now. When you think it's a violent film and what the themes of the film are, and that's kind of strange. I remember being really young before I'd seen the films. I had some walkie-talkies with Rambo on it. As kids' toys, you could buy the plastic knife and everything. It was quite. The 80s were a strange time, but a great time.
You don't really see plastic swords from films so much nowadays, do you? I remember like the Lord of the Rings and the Star Wars. You always used to get plastic swords.
You don't get
and
the Star
stuff.
Wars ones, I guess, don't you? But
I don't think there's as much merch for kids.
Yeah,
it's all
I suppose it's all
Avengers
like-
and that, isn't it?
Yeah.
They don't really have swords.
computer games stuff now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all about the Marvel. So the sheriff. Let's talk about him in the film. Because
Brian Dennehy.
Brian Dennehy. Yeah, I first was aware of him. Probably the FX films, if you remember those.
I don't know what that means.
No, they were sort of thrillers. They'd done 2 of them in the late 80s, early 90s, I think. And he was the dad in Tommy Boy, the 90s Chris Farley, David Spade. Loads and loads and loads of films. I think I've got here 185 acting credits on IMDb there. And
Busy man.
people of my generation probably remember him. Actually, he was one of the dads in the 90s Romeo and Juliet, the Leonardo DiCaprio one.
Is he?
He is, yeah.
Oh.
He's just done so much, and
Let's give that a rewatch.
he only passed away 2 years ago and was working right up until then.
Oh,
A lot of TV work towards the end. I think he's really good in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He gets a lot of different emotions at different times, and it really gets the right ideas across where they want them to. And that might sound like a really basic thing for an actor, but he does it really well.
Yeah. And he's just the one thing I do like with the police in it it could actually go a bit, Smokey and the Bandit, they're all bungling cops.
Yeah.
It doesn't at all, and there's kind of no humour in this at all, which is perfect for what it is, and maybe that's one of the reasons the sequels just don't seem.
Because the third one, deliberately otherwise, is hilarious.
Yeah, that's made by Cannon Films, isn't it? And
shouts out to Cannon.
Yeah. It's just I think he's perfect for this role. One thing I didn't know till reading up on it, in the novel, the sheriff is a veteran of the Korean War.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons.
That explains some of the motivation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
And when you go and see this, if you look when you see in his office, there's like medals and stuff from that in the background. So it's there. But going back to what we said before, it was cut down from a longer film. Maybe they cut that out.
That's the only sort of slight misgiving I have. Is arguably his initial motives. It seems, maybe it doesn't seem that bizarre, but his sort of an initial absolute contempt for the man.
Yeah.
For Johnny Rambo, it seems.
Yeah.
Disproportionate, which I know is the whole point.
Yeah, it is.
But it's a difficult thing, I suppose, to get on to convey.
Yeah. He says to him at one point, "Get a haircut and take a bath. You won't get hassled so much." He says that one of the first things he says when he sees John.
Both is accurate as advice, but also it's sometimes not the problem.
Yeah. So the whole thing is it's representing what happens in general to people after Vietnam, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the police sort of represent America, I suppose. That's what the book was, because the book was 1972.
Yes.
Particularly in a town called Hope, as you said earlier.
It was also filmed in a different town called Hope, which I found out.
Really?
Yeah, because it's set Hope, Washington, but it was filmed at Hope somewhere else.
Okay.
If anyone has the answer, send it on a postcard to King Street Cinema.
or on our Facebook page, for the podcast Facebook page and Instagram. Comment anything on that.
Social media.
Yeah, we're all on that, or we will be by the time this goes out. Just want to mention how the film was shot, because I think the look of the film is really great. The scenes in the forest really just look authentic to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't look old, does it? And at the same time, doesn't look fake. It's got that really nice balance where.
Yeah, and it's obviously all practical effects. There's quite a bit of action in this.
Yeah.
For a film which, for 15 million back then, wasn't overly. It wasn't like blockbuster standard, was it? And everything looks fine to me. By fine, I mean, there's blood. There's nothing looks fake.
No.
Yeah.
And there's the way they do there's flashback scenes to Vietnam.
They're really well done.
That looks really, and it's just for me. I was just going to say, for me, it's quite difficult doing this. Normally, we do spoilers, don't we?
We're both struggling.
This is quite. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those that I wouldn't say it's a faultless movie for what we said about the sheriff, but then that's kind of explained if you look.
Yes, yeah, it's not something I'd thought about, but it's this time it's slightly more. I was like, oh, why is he doing that? Because you just sort of take it for granted, I suppose. It's a film watched, a dozen or so times. You think, he's, just how it is. But I think, it is a bit weird that he's so hostile straight off the bat.
It happens so quickly as well, doesn't it?
Then police in America, these things happen.
Yeah. Well, it could just be that he's a random horrible man.
Yeah,
which also happens, And I think he's great. Who's the actor who? He's in all of the films apart from the last one because he died before.
Richard Crenna.
Yeah,
Troutman.
Yeah, who I think is great. He was actually in the Second World War himself, so he's from probably more or less played himself.
Gives it an authenticity, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he even kind of reprised the role in Hot Shots Part 2. He plays the same sort of character to there, so he clearly liked what he was doing, or just embraced it really.
Yeah, he's great in it. Yeah.
He's apart from there's flashbacks of him in Last Blood, but he's in all of them, and I think he's the solid military man, and really good. And
Yeah, he wears a good beret, doesn't he?
He does wear a good beret.
Really well.
Wears it well. Yeah, no Frank Spencer there. You can tell he's actual military. And another thing we mentioned as well, I really like the way it's shot and stuff. The director actually went on to do Weekend at Bernie's. He'd done loads and loads of stuff, and mainly TV work before this. And Weekend at Bernie's is an underrated film, I think. Have you guys seen it?
Not seen it, I must confess.
No, it's not one I've seen either. My youth is showing on this one, I suspect.
And he also done the only other big-ish film was Fun with Dick and Jane, the original version from the 70s, because they remade it with Jim Carrey.
Didn't know that was a remake,
but
yeah. I really didn't like the remake of that, but the original's okay. 55 directing credits, still alive, but he's about 90. And
he's got a couple more films left in him.
Well, yeah, it hasn't stopped Clint Eastwood yet, has it? So,
Rambo 6, what we saying?
yeah. And the music is by Jerry Goldsmith, and you guys being musicians and probably more.
You tar us with that brush.
You probably know a lot more about this guy than me.
Jerry Goldsmith's the man.
He's got quite a varied back catalogue since the 60s, really. Sort of some of his early big films, stuff like Planet of the Apes and Patton, particularly quite a big credit for him. And then he's known for mostly probably like the Star Trek film.
But not anymore in case of the copyright strike.
And then lots of stuff in the 90s. Well, he did Chinatown as well, didn't he? Yeah.
Okay, yes.
So yeah, I'm remembering it all. But he has a sort of style to him that kind of, I think, sounds very familiar, because I get the feeling that a lot of people have sort of taken a lot of the essence of what he does and and copied it. So it does sound very familiar throughout, but it's a nice score, this.
I
delivers on all
this. It's him at his best, I think, really.
It's really good. He even co-wrote the song at the end. It's a long road, some way downhill, which is really cheesy. But I like it.
I mean, because it does sort of crib on the main theme, doesn't it? The song at the end.
Yeah.
I dare say he used his own material there.
Yeah, good for him.
I like when a movie has an original song.
Yeah, I think it's a genuinely moving score as well, which it didn't have to be. But it makes it.
It could have gone very badly wrong, couldn't it? But it's delivered the action points, but there is a definite sort of loneliness to the music in a way, so it does suit the character quite well.
Yeah. Now, this is the thing, you can watch this film two ways, I think. You can see it as the character study of John Rambo, or you can just watch it as a straight action film.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of action sequences in it.
There's plenty of stuff to go, yeah! But if you're invested emotionally, you kind of don't do that. It's an interesting duality.
There's motorbike chases, there's helicopters.
Truck chases.
Petrol station blows up.
Yeah, he gets attacked by rats.
Spoiler alert.
There's just lots in it, and it all. I don't think any of it has really aged. Obviously, it's clear it's made in the 80s and set in the 80s.
But it doesn't feel bad, does it? You know, some films when you're old.
It's not even necessarily got that kind of super macho kind of reactionary politics to it, which doesn't necessarily bar a film from being entertaining. Rambo 3, but it's not there. It's quite thoughtful within all the testosterone, I suppose.
Yeah.
If that added anything of any value.
I think it's a different film to what a lot of people think it is.
Yes.
And that's a positive. I mean, a film like this. I mean, I'm 40 now, so when it came out, my grandparents may have just thought it was lumped it in with films like Commando and that sort of thing. And I like those films because they're fun.
Yeah.
But this
is a very different thing. Yeah.
And there's fun bits in it. I mean, some of the action and stuff is enjoyable, but the tone of it is it's a serious matter.
It's more like your taxi drivers and your Apocalypse Nows in terms of themes that it's dealing with. It's different enough from them, but it could be discussed in the same terms as the study of John Rambo and Travis Bickle and comparisons there, favourably or otherwise.
Well, originally they wanted Al Pacino to play him,
and he actually probably been quite good.
It would have been a different film,
Yeah.
and you certainly wouldn't have got those sequels.
No.
And I don't think, Pacino wouldn't really do a sequel anyway. Sort of, he's done the odd one, but you know what I mean. I think it would have been a different. He'd have been more insane. It would have been.
You could imagine. I've
couldn't
not read the
imagine
book,
him
but I
running
have
in
read the
the
Wikipedia
forest.
synopsis, and you could imagine him making that film.
Yeah. And,
I couldn't
another
imagine
one.
any of the action scenes, so
No.
Yeah.
it'd have been dealt with just him talking a lot.
Yeah, and also there was talk of they wanted Chris Christopherson as Rambo, and Gene Hackman as the sheriff.
Hackman would have been good as a sheriff.
I actually think
feel.
Chris Christopherson might have been quite a good. Again, it would have been a very different thing, and it's
Yeah, he'd have
hard
sung
to-
the theme at the end.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
He'd have got arrested for singing.
But that because I was reading a thing about this. It was about a year ago. Quentin Tarantino. I don't know if this is something you were home to touch on, but he was talking about as a potential last film. Not that he'd ever do it, I don't think, but that if he was like, if I just wanted to make a really good film, I would not me, him would adapt The First Blood with Adam Driver and Kurt Russell.
That
And
would
do
be-
a straight adaptation of the book.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing to think
That's
about.
quite offensive to Stallone, though, really, isn't it?
Well, this
Who
is
does this Tarantino think he is?
Yeah.
This young upstart.
yeah. That wouldn't surprise me if one day this did get another retelling in the way that they done, say, Total Recall.
Yeah,
But I
but
think
hopefully it'd be good.
yeah. But I think because this is so iconic for Stallone, it would have to be done really well, and it might be a case of even if it was really good, you couldn't. Yeah,
No,
you can.
they'd probably make an extended mini-series or something now, wouldn't they?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
That's how all these things go.
Yeah. So, I think we've sort of covered. Because it's so difficult. I may have accidentally said some stuff I shouldn't, but I think
Yeah,
to be
I
fair,
definitely did. So sorry about that.
but I think a lot of people, and as you should, grown up watching this film, and it'd be so good to see it on the big screen. But it's one of those. I've seen it loads. I want to go, but with this season of VHS films coming up, nothing's really confirmed as we record this what the other films are going to be. But a few that have been mentioned, I actually haven't seen.
Oh, really?
So that would be really
that's
cool.
a rarity for you.
That is. I don't know how I'm going to do a podcast on one before I've seen it.
Without spoiling it.
Yeah.
But that'd be But I want to see something from that era on the big screen for the first time.
That'd be amazing.
And
yeah.
there's been several films shown at the cinema recently that I watched growing up loads of times. Wrath of Khan was recently shown, and RoboCop. And you do get something more from it on the big screen. As much as I love the VHS era, one thing I really regret is getting rid of all my cassettes. Most of them I've since got on disc, but there was something that little bit. It's like, how it is like a vinyl thing, and people pretend vinyl was better quality. So
It could be
VHS
the
is what
last
it
time
is.
you ever watched it as well, because it could break
Yeah.
while you're going. Yeah,
But
It was on the
there's
edge,
a sense
man.
of ritual, isn't there, that has perhaps been removed by the convenience of digital media.
particularly by the internet, I think.
Yeah, it's not. I mean,
You still have to get on your hands.
streaming
and knees
is
for
wonderful
DVD.
because it means you get to see a whole world of things that you wouldn't necessarily see otherwise. But it's there's perhaps a disposability that
It's the
maybe
death of
What is
meaning
it-
to anything, isn't it?
Well, one thing
that's quite dramatic for this. But yeah, maybe you're onto something with that.
But I saw someone the other day, and it's like when you used to go to a rental a shop, Blockbuster or whatever. I was like, I can't say Blockbuster. No, it's gone now. I can say Blockbuster.
They'll be back.
Yeah, but you'd pick your film, you'd spend your £3 or whatever, and then you'd got that to watch. And I'd always, I can't remember any time I rented a film and didn't get all the way through that film because I'd paid for it.
Yeah.
Whereas on streaming services, you might get 20 minutes for a film and get bored.
Mm.
And also, this is it's slightly different, but this was the era of you could watch a film and you're not flicking on your phone all the way through it.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons I love cinema, because you don't look at your phone and you get shushed and tired, and so you should if you do. I can see you're about to mention the people who do look at their phone.
The cultured sophisticates that attend King Street cinema, they don't. They're not munching really loudly or flicking on their phones. Not like some of these multiplexes you get.
Yeah, you're not a fan of popcorn at all.
Perhaps not. No.
I do a thing where I I'll buy snacks and stuff at the cinema, but I get through it during the trailers. So it's just
unless I'm with you.
Oh, yeah,
That's a spite. You.
Yeah. But I like that experience, and it was the same with VHS days. You'd pick up your snacks. And
what's your go-to King Street snack?
I like the fruit pastels, because they do have several. I'm one of them vegans, and they do have several options, even vegan ice cream there.
I had an excellent honeycomb ice cream the last time I was there.
Yeah, so
I do like a bit of ice cream, it must be said.
That's not a noisy. You can eat that, and you're not
suck
going
it.
to offend anyone, are you?
Yeah, well, you imagine sitting in the cinema and you're really noisy, and someone like Rambo overhears it.
He could have.
It's like
flashbacks.
Gremlins too.
Yeah. Yes. And the Gremlins was shown over Christmas, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
I did miss that one. So, so I know you're not so much the VHS era, but are there any films, what would have been that sort of 80s, earlyish 90s, that you'd love to see on the big screen that you watched at home as kids?
Putting us on the spot here.
I'd love to see the original Star Wars trilogy in its original unmolested format, as they were sort of originally released. Because
that's a good show.
I'm a child of the '97 special edition. I imagine it's very hard to track down anything that's
Library of Congress, I think.
Unaltered. But that would be a wonderful thing
That
to
would
see.
be
on a
great.
big
I
screen.
mean, I've seen
don't think-
every
yeah.
Star Wars film in the cinema, but now you've said that, I only saw the original
That's
trilogy on the
got
re-release.
Sort of the janky Jabba the Hutt stuff, and that has its own charm and nostalgia to it at this point. But it would be wonderful to see
Just so we had, if nothing else.
unaltered.
You get the Ewok song at the end.
Exactly, yeah, the Yub Nubs. Because I've seen kind of dodgy Laserdisc rips, but it would be nice to see it full. How it was originally.
I have got the DVDs like that, which I just picked up really cheap. But
they're a bit wobbly,
You
which
can
is to be
knock off,
expected.
you reckon?
Well, I think they were Laserdisc rips
Yeah.
that they then put onto the 2006 release.
yeah, I think so. You can't get them on Blu-ray at all.
No, and yeah.
And I wouldn't any.
To be honest, I think he's got a winner there.
Yeah,
I can't think of anything else that I'd want to see more than that.
yeah,
Yeah. I think I sort of forget that Star Wars is of that era a little bit,
yeah.
just because it's ever present, or at least perhaps less so now. But certainly when I was growing up, it was.
I can remember, like you mentioned having Disney films. It wasn't like for certain films like DVDs now. Like Disney films definitely, and the Star Wars films would get a short release, maybe one Christmas, and then you couldn't get them again for about 2 years. So I can remember points of my life where actual Star Wars films were like gold dust, which was great. And Disney used to always do that. And then a few years later, they'd release them from the vault. They'd like mid-90s, they'd really push, say, Lady and the Tramp one Christmas, and then you couldn't get it again for a while.
I remember, yes, because at the start of all the videos, they always used to have the trailers, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they'd always seem to push certain ones. I always wonder why they chose that one for this film.
Remember sing-along songs? Did you have any of them?
No. I'm aware of sing-along songs, but
Yeah.
I didn't have any copies of them on. It's like SingStar, wasn't it?
It was like that, yeah. But not.
Yeah. But you mentioned trailers. That's another thing Netflix.
You only watch trailers when you're forced to do it. 'Cause
Yeah,
the
you
TV remote
whereas
hasn't worked
you
quick
could
enough.
fast forward them, but I tended to just sit there and have the trailers on when I rented a video. And when you rented a film, there was always a load more trailers than when you bought it.
Yeah.
Oh, right, I
It was
hadn't
kind of-
thought
yeah.
about that.
It
Yeah.
was kind of like a little cinematic experience in your front room.
Right on.
And you get the little Federation Against Copyright Theft fact.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, that's. Well, should we do a rating each for you out of 5 for
We're going
First
for
Blood?
stars, are we?
Yeah, we'll do out of 5 for First Blood.
I've got to go 4.5.
Yeah,
4.5.
at least.
Yeah, it was a difficult one. I was
It's not-
edging towards a 5,
It
but I
could be a
can't
5,
quite
but
commit
not
to
a
it. I don't
flawless
think.
5, maybe? I don't know. It's a wonderful film.
Depends how harsh you're being, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
4.5 any day of the week.
Yeah. Well, tell you what. When you go and see it, think to yourself afterwards. Then you see it on the big screen. Is it a 5?
It's the sort of thing that would
Yeah.
easily change the opinion.
I think that might be the deal breaker.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, thanks to both of you for doing this, and everyone should check you out online
Yeah.
and get going to your gigs. Maybe you could do some Jerry Goldsmith in your set.
That'd be quite good, wouldn't it?
That'd be.
Or Jerry Goldsmith.
What have you done to deserve that?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. We've mainly been discussing the VHS Friday season, what's about to start at King Street. But a season that's been going now for about 5 months is the 1982 season. James is here. How are you, James?
I'm fine, thank you, Andy. How are you?
I'm good.
Excellent.
And we're just going to discuss this season. It's about halfway through.
It is, yeah, it is halfway through, I'd say.
Do you want to mention some of the films that have already been on?
Okay, so we've started with Blade Runner in February, and we've also had Poltergeist, recently Dark Crystal, Tootsie. Can't remember, there was a couple of others, weren't there?
Star Trek 2.
Star Trek 2, that was great, that one, yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, so some absolute classics already, I'd say.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, is 1982 the year you were born?
It is and was.
Yeah.
Yes.
So these are films that literally have been with you your whole life.
Indeed. I've seen every single one of the movies on our list of 82 films.
Yeah.
And most of them many times, in fact.
Yes. So they're films you enjoy?
Oh, very much so, yeah. Yeah. And looking forward to the ones coming up,
Yeah.
of course.
We're going to talk in a bit more length about Tron, which is the next one, on August the 9th.
It is on August 9th, yeah.
Oh, actually, there's one in between. Will be after we recorded this, which is Fast Times.
That is true.
Yeah, but that will have been shown by the time this goes out.
That is right.
So, and what are the other ones coming up?
So after Tron, we'll be having The King of Comedy, and then The Thing for Halloween, which is nice, and then Koi Yanagatsu, which is a very interesting non-narrative movie, very different to the others, in fact.
Yeah, I don't think I'm aware of that.
Right, it's a fascinating, interesting movie of sound and vision, really, just about the experience of life in all its forms, all the way from nothing to the modern day, which would have been 82 at the time. So not really the modern day as we know it now, but still, industrial and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's a fascinating journey through everything, if you like, told in a non-narrative form, so without story, just visual.
Excellent. And that one's December?
That one's November.
November.
Yeah, that's the last one we'll be doing. Won't be doing one for December.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So have you watched any of the films in cinema when they've been on? Or have you been busy working?
I have sadly, yes, not seen any of them here at cinema. Some of them I think I have seen. I think I have seen some of them in the past at other times, but when I'm working it's not really.
There's a lot of them probably sort of cross over with the other season, and you grew up watching them on VHS and TV.
Oh, certainly, yeah. Most of these films are films I saw at a fairly young age, even some of the ones I shouldn't have necessarily, as I grew up watching a lot of horror films and things like that. So they are certainly a part of my experience growing up watching movies. So I'm very happy to be a part of putting them on, even if I'm not watching. Just knowing that they're on in the cinema and knowing that other people are watching them makes me really happy. So I love it. It's great.
Can you just mention how you chose, or between you guys, how you chose the films, or was it what you could get hold of, or did you have a set?
Okay, well, I mean, Dan did choose at the time. I think all of them really, though most of them, if not all of them, I was completely happy with having on, because they're all great, really. They are all classics, and they are a part of 1982, film wise. So that's it. I think all of them as well fairly easy to get hold of, distributing wise. I think. Yeah.
I think there's a good balance of, say, movies like Fast Times, which was huge at the time and become a sort of cult film, even though it was a big hit. Poltergeist, a massive film, and then something like Tron, which didn't do very well at all, but it definitely became a cult film to the fact that years later they made a big budget sequel.
Absolutely. I mean, the era of the 80s especially, but the early 80s for certain, now is considered, with things like Stranger Things and stuff, as very much nostalgic, culturally relevant sort of thing that people want to look back at and appreciate. And these movies like Tron especially, are those kind of archetype films of like, that is of that era. It's early CGI, it looks great, it looks futuristic and from the past at the same time. It's amazing that. These are the kind of things, and the music, 80s music, and whether it's pop music or sort of, again, sort of futuristic, sort of electronic music, and all these things make up what it is. That era is, and it seems to be something that I think young people now seem to be kind of attracted to. In a way.
Yeah, you mentioned Stranger Things. That's definitely
exactly.
And also, it's the first generation where, if a film didn't do so well at the box office, people could get hold of it afterwards themselves, not just wait for when it's on TV. They could go and rent a film, and things like the video covers were a big selling point. And it was really, that probably the year it came in big time.
I would have thought so. I mean, early 80s, certain, 82, 83, and I mean, in this country, it would have been before the there was video market in the early 80s was kind of a new frontier, and films could just be released very easily without any kind of need for distribution rights and the rest of it for a bit. And so I think being around at that time, which I was, wasn't born or was too young to really remember, would have been very interesting if you were into videos and video rental at that time.
Of course, it was the time of the video nasties and
that kind of thing. But with that aside, just videos were a complete new thing. And it was like the internet in the 90s, a kind of a whole new brand of, no one really knew how to police it yet or how to deal with it. And so, it would have been very interesting, I think, to have been sort of at an age of just, collecting and renting videos.
It was certainly something different and remembered really fondly. Well, thanks for that. We'll be talking about Tron in a bit more detail in a bit. Okay, still here with James. I was just going to mention VHSs. As we spoke to Dan earlier, do you remember any particular you rented a lot or watched a lot or owned?
Right. Okay. I'm going to say Labyrinth was one that I remember renting a lot as a kid, and I do think we even got a copy of it as well after renting it many times. But there are a number of movies that I remember very, very clearly watching many times as a kid, and that we'd rent. So
with Labyrinth, just mentioned that. As a kid, were you aware of who David Bowie even was?
Yes.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, it was at home, was one of the people I heard more than most.
Okay.
Beatles were like mum and dad's music.
Yeah.
Sorry, David Bowie.
David Bowie, yeah.
Beatles was another one, but David Bowie, all the time.
Yeah. Any others in particular that you'd like to maybe show here?
I tell you, there are so many. Howard the Duck.
Yes.
Would love to do it. Master of the Universe.
Yeah.
Those two just would make me so happy.
Yeah.
Those are two movies I rented a lot as a kid, and I just absolutely loved them to pieces. I even saw Master of the Universe at the cinema, but I didn't see Howard the Duck. But I loved that one.
Yeah. That's I'm going to plug my other podcast. That's on HCM's Bowl Colt. They were two of the first films we'd done. Howard the Duck and Master of the Universe. And the new audiences I showed them to loved them as well.
They're just brilliant.
Yeah. I thought until recently that Master of the Universe was the first film I remembered seeing in the cinema. Then I found out that a film called Benji the Hunted came out the year before, and I remember seeing that. Which is
a dog movie.
Yeah, it was. I tried rewatching it, and I got about halfway through it. I have to finish it. So they're sort of films that didn't do so well. Even Labyrinth is remembered as a classic name, but that didn't do very well.
But just absolutely loved it. I cannot tell you how many times I saw that as a kid and was just blown away constantly. And we showed that here not too long ago, and I did watch that one.
Yeah.
And I was again just like, this is brilliant. This is still brilliant.
Yeah. I don't know what the reviews were like for that film when it came out.
Not good.
Were they
mixed.
Yeah.
But generally
Strange.
not. And was not a film that people thought was for Jim Henson. They were quite disappointed, I think, mostly.
That's mad.
Yeah.
You think that it's produced by both of those, that and Howard the Duck, produced by George Lucas.
That's right.
Who could not get a hit apart from Star Wars or Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Co-written, or the screenplay was written by Terry Jones.
That's right,
from Monty Python, and you can tell a lot of that humour.
Yeah.
Fantastic film.
Yes.
And but it's good that it's
great
gone on.
songs as well.
Yeah, exactly. But it's great that it's gone on to be remembered. And
Yeah.
there's still comic books and stuff come out of it,
Right.
and it's talk of a sequel. Ooh.
Okay.
Still. But yeah, and that's also interesting that, especially for kids' films, I think don't listen to the reviews.
Yeah.
Because kids,
Agreed.
you know, they know what they like, and it's not necessarily what a 50-year-old man with a clipboard
That's right.
reviewing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks a lot. Maybe we'll speak to you more about some VHS on a
Okay.
future episode. And I just want to talk more about Labyrinth. We'll save that
Okay.
for another time.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Kevin Flynn, computer genius. Kevin Flynn, prisoner, inside the machine.
Oh man, this isn't happening. It only thinks it's happening.
The Master Control Program has chosen you to serve on the game grid.
Tron, where energy lives and breathes. Where the computer is master. And escape impossible. Fire! Tron. The adventure begins this summer.
As mentioned earlier, on the 9th of August, Tron will be shown on is it the big screen, James?
It is the big screen, yes.
The big screen.
King Street Cinema.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've just recorded a bit of a review of another film for the ACM's Vault of Colt.
Yes.
So we're kind of in talky mood, but we'll keep this a bit short because for me, it's been a long time since I've seen Tron. I'm not going to rewatch it to talk about it. I'm just going to talk about how I'm looking forward to seeing it on the big screen.
Okay. Well, brilliant. I haven't seen it in a while myself, so yeah.
Yeah, but you've been shown the trailer a lot, and
I've been shown the trailer a lot, so I know the trailer fairly well.
Yeah, it was one of those films that the imagery of it is just so recognisable,
Yes.
so iconic with the 80s.
Yes.
But it was considered at the time, well, it was a flop.
So I believe so.
But looking at the numbers,
Yeah.
it cost 17 million, which I'd have thought more, but it was 1982.
Yeah.
It did gross 35 million.
Amazing. Well, that's its money back. That's its money back.
Yeah, but I suppose they thought this would be huge.
Yeah, they probably obviously would be hoping for massive numbers, and
Yeah.
like I say, if you double your money, then you break even.
Yeah.
They basically did. They
It's
basically
done.
broke even on it. So not a flop, not a success.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it would have definitely been one that would have done better on VHS a few years later.
Definitely.
And it was a long time later. Was it 25 more than that years? They done the.
When did
probably close
Legacy come out? Ooh, was that 2010? Was it?
Yeah, so closer to 30 years.
Yeah.
And then there was an animated series, and there's still talk. I think it's penciled in for 2025 Part 3.
Wow. Okay.
With, don't want to put anybody off, but Jared Leto might be.
Oh God, no!
Yeah, that's the name. It says rumoured on IMDb. There's a career that kind of went wrong. But I'd still go see the third one, even if he isn't it.
Okay.
I seem to. My brain tells me he was in Tron Legacy, but I think I'm confusing it with another sci-fi film.
I don't know because I have not seen Tron Legacy.
Oh,
No.
It's one of those that on release got sort of averagey reviews, but people liked, or maybe good reviews actually. It reminds me of the sequel to Blade Runner,
Right.
And the fans liked it.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the sequel to Blade Runner that Jared Leto was in.
He is in it.
That's what I'm getting confused with.
Okay.
So Tron on the big screen.
Yes.
Jeff Bridges,
Brilliant.
one of the first films I'd have seen Jeff Bridges in, I think.
Yeah. Not been acting since he was a child.
Yes.
And I think for Disney, did he work for Disney as a child? I'm not quite sure.
I get confused because Kurt Russell and him are the same person.
They are.
Yeah.
He certainly did, but I'm pretty sure Bridges might have.
Possibly.
Anyway, possibly.
Yeah, in one of these sort of Disney TV-ish type movies.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Bridges is in it.
Yeah. But it wasn't. It was the director, Steven Lisberger. Steve Lisberger. Not that well known. Before that, he'd done the Animal Olympics.
Yes, which I remember seeing, which I always thought was Disney, and then I've been told it's not. And now you probably, that's crazy.
Amazing. Billy Crystal and people like that do the voices in it. I remember loving that as a kid, not seen it for a very long time. That was in 1980. Afterwards, he's done Hot Pursuit, which sounds familiar, and a film I know you like, Mark Hamill.
Yes. Bob Peck.
Yeah.
Slipstream, yeah.
Which I've never seen.
The aviation science fiction movie. Absolutely love it. It's great.
Yeah.
Go watch that.
Would that be one you'd like to see on the big screen?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got to look it up. He didn't direct or have anything to do, I don't think, apart from it's credited as writing because he created characters for Tron Legacy.
Right.
But in a way, this film has become his legacy.
Very good.
I'm just really looking forward to those visuals. It's
early CGI. Yeah. So anyone who's interested in the history of CGI, this is certainly one to watch.
Yeah. Did you know as well that it was disqualified from Oscar nominations the year release because they considered computer effects to be cheating?
That's right. I did read that. I remember looking that up many years ago. Reading that, thinking, okay, interesting. It shows you how things have changed.
Special effects were referred to by my grandparents as camera tricks.
Yeah,
and I suppose CGI's camera cheating.
If it's not, if you were just going to think of things having to happen in camera, then fine. But there's loads of things before CGI that don't happen in camera, and they have been allowed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just computers. Computers bad, basically.
Which kind of the point of the film.
Completely the point of the film. Watch those computers because one day they may take over the world again.
But this is one of the first films to touch on that, and it was really cashing in on the
only one I can think of before. If we're just thinking of computer bad films, there's one called Colossus from 1970.
Okay.
Amazing, right? Where it's about a smart, intelligent computer that's supposed to basically watch over America and be like the defense. But the Soviet Union, they've got their own version, and the two start talking with each other and decide, right, we can work together on how to basically control humanity because they don't know what's good for them. So we're going to do it for them and basically, like in a certain kind of way, enslave humanity for its own benefit. It's very, very creepy like that. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. A lot of talky mostly. Drama. But interesting if you're into those kind of weird sort of sci-fi computers. Scary.
Cool. I shall look that up.
So that's the earliest one. But Tron again, the similar kind of thing. A scary, very powerful computer wants to dominate and control things.
And this is one of those films that always put in there ahead of its time. But also very of its time because you're thinking arcades were massive.
Absolutely, and the guy owns an arcade.
Yeah,
Jeff Bridges' character, he owns his own arcade. And so that's very playing games. This is very much about games, computer games. Which were like you say in 1982 were I think at the top of their game. And
we mentioned Disney. Disney put money into it, released it, but it was picked up by them when they were trying to almost reinvent themselves because they'd had those animated flops around that time.
In the late 70s, like was it the one with the cats?
Aristocrats. It's considered a classic now and one of my favourite, not just Disney films but films. Disney's Robin Hood was a flop when it came out.
Again, it was about the same similar time, wasn't that as well?
70s? That was in mid-70s, I reckon.
Mid-70s,
which it's so interesting that the films that it's almost like music that sometimes a song got to number 20 in the charts is remembered 40 years later and the number one isn't. It's so the same with films. Hence why we're talking about Tron now, and who knows what.
The Tron the reason why we are showing Tron at cinema is because it's part of the 1982 Future Classics season, and that's it is a future classic in a sense because it wasn't huge, like a massive film at the time, but now is considered a very important film in of itself, and has sequels based on it and things.
I mean it didn't do that well at all. We did go head to head more or less, I think, with E.T., which was possibly
82,
the big.
That's a crazy year. I mean, there was massive films in 1982,
and a few in the season you're showing didn't do that well. But all of them are remembered, as we say. And to go head to head with E.T., which I think if you look into it, probably was the biggest commercial hit of the whole 80s. So I don't think it was beaten until possibly something like Jurassic Park or Titanic.
I think you're probably right there. Certainly in the 80s there was nothing that came close to it, really.
So you got to think that it's still remembered. There was a sequel, and it's gonna. I'm just seeing it on that big screen. I definitely when I rented as a kid and watched on TV. So this is another interesting that you could have shown this at either season, the VHS season.
Certainly, there's a few of those really. That they're like that with the whole sort of could be in either or sort of thing. And I mean, we talking about seeing it as a kid. We had mentioned this the other day about perhaps not particularly liking it so much as a kid, but then rewatching it a bit older and appreciating it a hell of a lot more. And I do think that is very much a sign of the time as well. I think there are a lot of films that are sort of maybe a little slow for younger kids of that time, that when you watch as a bit older, sort of in your teens or something, you might get into it a lot more. And not just because I mean the film is sold on its visuals certainly, and the story being that it is a Disney film really, it's not so strong plot wise, but it still is solid. It is a solid story, and it's it's an interesting one, and it's got good actors in it, and it's certainly worth watching more than once. I think it is a film. I've seen it, I think, probably about 5 times in my life.
So about the visual side of it and the fact it's quite slow reminds me of another Disney film which you showed a few years ago, Robin Williams' Popeye. Very much the same. I watched it as a kid, didn't dislike it, but I watch it now, I love it.
So I'm the exact same. I saw it a couple of times. I'm pretty sure we rented it out a couple of times when I was a kid, because I love Popeye, I love the cartoons, and I didn't particularly like it. Like, I'd watch it, but I didn't think it was great. Like, I was disappointed in it because I love the cartoons so much. But as an adult, and again that's another one I've seen many times as a grown up, love it. Absolutely love it.
The cast in that fantastic. The sets are great.
Songs are great.
Everything. But it's just. I think it's because it's weird because watching as an adult, it's so accurate to the cartoon. I think, but as a kid, it's not fast paced like that. It's not short, and I think kind of the same, but it's slightly more like the cartoon was in the. When they'd done the Flintstones in the 90s, which kind of so hit and miss that film, but that also was jumping on the Jurassic Park wagon.
Of course, dinosaurs.
So what we're going to do, on maybe the next podcast or the one after, we will talk about our reaction to Tron after seeing it. And I'll certainly do the same with First Blood as well.
Okay, brilliant. Fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
See you later.
That's more or less it for the first of our podcasts. Thanks to everyone who listened, and of course thanks to everyone who took part. Dan, James and Owen and Andrew from the Pookajee Players. I'm really looking forward to going to see Tron, as I previously mentioned, and of course Rambo. Loads more coming up at the cinema, new films and some more older ones. It's updated regularly on their website. Please check it out, or just Google King Street Cinema Ipswich. It'll all come up for you. As I record this, I've just come out from seeing Get Carter, the 1971 Michael Caine classic. I've never actually seen it. It's one of those films that just never got round to. I might have even been put off because it's one of those that people have banged on so much about. I have to say I really enjoyed it, and it was so good to see it on the big screen. And I just can't recommend seeing these films more, really. I mean, a film like that was been on TV so many times, passed me by. I'm so glad that I watched it in that environment. And yeah, more to come. I'm just going to end now with a little bit recorded by a friend of mine, Adam Whybray, who you may know if you're into films and live in Suffolk. He's out and about. He does a lot. Just going to leave you with why he likes cinema so much. A little story about that. If you want to get in contact and get involved yourself with the podcast, please message us on Facebook or Instagram, and I'll get back to you, and maybe we can sort something out. We'll be back soon. I don't know what the next VHS movie will be for the VHS season, but we will be reviewing whatever that is for our next episode. Thank you very much. I've been Andy. We'll leave you with Adam.
King Street Cinema has been important to me since I was a teenager. Back when I got into films around 15, 16, it was King Street, then the Ipswich Film Theatre, that really allowed me to explore my love for films outside the mainstream releases that I often wasn't interested in. One of my fondest memories is going to see Inland Empire, the David Lynch film, at release at the Ipswich Film Theatre in Cinema 2. So this small claustrophobic screening room, but it was perfect for this intimate, weird horror film. It had an interval which was deeply appreciated. And yeah, I volunteered as an usher at the then film theatre over my 20s, and I saw so many interesting films that made such an impression on me. It's always had a lovely atmosphere, and the people who run it really love cinema and really know and care about cinema. You just have an experience there that you wouldn't get at a large mainstream chain cinema. And yeah, long may it continue.